welcome today. Very, very special guest, Mr. William McCarthy, actually an accountant for one of the top accounting firms in the United States. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being here today. Welcome, man. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I definitely think that we can provide some value to some people in terms of just what is going on in corporate America and how they're looking at the digital space and these digital assets and the development of them in the marketplace. So I think we'll be able to help some people out today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for your time once again. And where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Waterbury, Connecticut. So that's where I grew up. That's where my parents were born and raised, and my great-grandparents. So we're multiple generations from Waterbury, Connecticut, all the way back to World War II. And then I left Waterbury when I was 12, and I moved up to Goshen, Connecticut, which is in like Litchfield County area, which I know that you're aware of, but some people aren't. So I went from the city lifestyle to basically a complete shift into the country lifestyle, where there's not a single stoplight in the entire town. So that's my transition.
Awesome. That's great. So tell me a little bit about, I know you are an accountant currently. Tell me about, where did you go to school? What was your process when actually in college and studying to become an accountant?
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to become an accountant for quite some time. So I was ahead of the ball in that sense. I didn't necessarily go into college uncertain of what I was looking to do. I actually knew exactly what I was trying to major in, so it made it easier for me. So I started off with local branches. I went to UConn, just to be clear. So I went to the University of Connecticut. I started off with the local branches. There was one in Torrington, Waterbury, West Hartford. Now that's in downtown Hartford. The only branches that I didn't go to was Avery Point and Stamford. I ended up finishing at Storrs. That's when I got my bachelor's degree in 2016. And then I went right back to school and in 2015. And I went right back to school and got my master's degree in accounting in 2016. I graduated in May of 2016 and I started working in July of 2016. And that's when I went into public accounting.
That's incredible. Congratulations, bachelor's and master's. That's really good.
Thank you.
Absolutely, you're welcome. So you've been studying this, for years and years through college, and now you've actually been working as an accountant. How has the experience been, within your profession? How have you basically, been doing with that for the past few years?
It's good. I've had a unique experience compared to some other people because I've moved around a lot within the firm. So I've been with the firm for, I've been with two different firms because the original firm that I was with got acquired by a different larger firm. So for 5 years, I was with my first firm, which was a 500 employee firm, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. We had about 8 offices. It was a middle market firm, so it wasn't a large firm. It wasn't a small firm. We didn't do anything with public companies. So if you were listed on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ, we didn't do any services for you with regards to auditing financial statements. So I started off doing auditing financial statements, basically looking at line items, looking at certain accounts, looking at changes in those accounts, and then trying to get some details and some explanations as to what occurred and why did that occur, and does that seem reasonable based upon your understanding of the client. So that's where I started off, and then I transitioned from auditing to forensic accounting. I did that for about 9 months to a year and had some great experiences with that. And then I started transitioning from out of forensic accounting and I went into cybersecurity, technology, operational risk assessments. So it's a lot of things that are put into one bucket. And that's where I started to find myself going down that path because of my love for the blockchain technology. So they saw a finance-based person that was also focused on technologies, and that was a very unique skill set for that individual. So that ended up kind of putting me through a unique career path, going down a very unusual path where usually you go into audit, you stay in audit, and then you end up in a manager in audit in a certain amount of time, or the same thing for tax. So for me, I went from audit to forensic accounting. Within my forensic accounting time, I was analyzing tax returns for fraud, and then I went over to cybersecurity. I kind of shifted out of cybersecurity into operational and risk assessments. So I kind of had a very unique experience in the public accounting world, but I definitely enjoyed it. I learned a lot from all of the various industries and the services that we provide in those industries, as well as how they all incorporate to provide a more value-added service once you start to get their strategic planning and the management down properly.
Well, no, that's very interesting. You're very knowledgeable in your craft, in your career, and I think it's an amazing career. And how long have you actually been working for the firms, the different accounting firms that you've been a part of?
About 6 years now.
Okay, so 6 years. That's definitely a a good chunk of time. Actually seeing hands-on what's going on with the corporate side of finance. And I know you mentioned earlier you spoke about blockchain technology, and how you are basically incorporating that within these accounting firms, or these accounting firms are actually incorporating that into their agenda. Describe a little bit about how that works. What are they doing right now that is really, transitioning or entering into blockchain technology with cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me. So I can separate that into two different answers. Basically, I can answer from my first firm, Bloom Shapiro, and I can explain that what we were doing there is we were writing articles, we were publishing articles, we were presenting in front of young society groups like CPAs, things like that, beta alpha psi groups, and we were trying to assimilate our name with blockchain, so that way when people thought of the blockchain technology, they were thinking of our company name, and that's how we were trying to gain some market share within the marketplace itself with regards to those technologies. We taking that a little bit further, what I ended up doing was I didn't create it. It sounds a little built up when you say it that way. I copy and pasted some source code that I found online into a Microsoft blockchain creation database that they had on the Azure cloud. And I basically created my own blockchain without writing any code. So I just took somebody else's code that was already created. I dumped it into this workbench to build off of, and I created my own blockchain. What I did with that blockchain that I created was I utilized it for hands-on training purposes. So like I'm saying, these different college group societies would say, are you willing to come and speak with us for half an hour? We have 100 kids, we have 200 kids, and we're trying to have a hands-on group learning session about blockchain technology, what it is, what it's not, and what it's capable of. I then took that blockchain that I created for HR purposes. I customized that blockchain with an in-house computer coder that we had at Bloom Shapiro, and we customized the blockchain details and the parameters of it specifically for a client request. So a client came to us and said, we're looking for a traditional database system where it's just like a QuickBooks, ADP, any sort of like very large typical database software stuff. And we're also looking for a corresponding complementary blockchain solution. So we want two solutions. We want the typical traditional database solution, and then we want a corresponding more emerging technology blockchain solution. And so we customized my blockchain that I copy and pasted off of line for those individuals. And we were able to walk them through that blockchain, how it would work, how it would function, what it would look like, the capabilities of it. And we were the only service firm that actually did that. And so in the end, we ended up selling them a contract for that specific necessity to the tune of like $486,000. And so that was the first client that I've ever had that was looking for a blockchain technology solution that they were actually willing to pay for, compared to like, how would we incorporate this and what does it look like? And that's the smaller firm. And then with the larger firm that I work for now, even just in 1 year, we had a crypto team where we would talk about crypto and blockchain technology, and that was about 4 or 5 people, most of which were associates or lower level, entry level staff personnel that were in that group. And now, even just 12 months later, with that same group that I was in, now I'm starting to see that there's 20 people, there's 25 people in the group meetings that we're having. We're having much higher level personnel that are within these meetings and are providing some sort of contribution to the meeting with regards to, I have a client that's looking for this, or we are currently servicing a client that is requiring that, and basically coming together to say, what is this technology? What are the risks of this technology? What services can we provide based upon that understanding of what it is and what the risks are? And then how would we do that? And so you have those kind of multiple steps of risk analysis and risk assessment prior to the actual implementation or the execution of financial service offerings pertaining to blockchain technologies. They're very risk adverse right now. They're more concerned about the dangers compared to the benefits.
Right. There is a lot of volatility for sure, and that makes sense. And, what would you say is the amount of money? Because I know you said earlier that the accounting firm that you're currently with, that you're partnered with, is one of the top 10 accounting firms in the United States. So what kind of money is actually flowing through this aspect, this industry, within all these different companies, would you say?
Yeah, so we've kind of had some conversations about this before, so I know what you're getting at here. But just in terms of the one company that I work for, which is the #6 largest financial services firm in the world at this point, certainly nationally, probably internationally, and they have a wealth advisory service group, just one little group within our entire company. And what they do in that wealth advisory services group is they manage high net worth level individuals. So people who have, 100 million, 250 million, potentially even $1 billion worth of net worth, and we're helping manage their investments, their portfolio, things of that nature. As of right now, the Wealth Advisory Services Group is not telling any of their clients to invest in cryptocurrency whatsoever. And what we're doing, I can tell you right now, they're trying to figure out, okay, at what point in time do we tell our wealth advisory clients, okay, it is safe to invest in cryptocurrencies? When is that time? How much do we invest in, and what do we invest into? And right now, that little like figuring it out type of feeling it out game is exactly what's going on with all of the large services firm, Ernst & Young, which is now known as EY, PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is now known as PwC, Deloitte, which I think is still known as Deloitte, and then KPMG. Those are the big four accounting firms. They're all doing very similar things right now. So to answer your question a little bit more directly, let's just say that each of these 6 firms that I'm talking about has about 100 to 125 billion dollars in assets under management that they're handling for their total wealth advisory service practice. If they were looking at it from that perspective, 500 million to $1 billion per big four firm, which is probably very reasonable. If just a small portion, 5%, 2.5% of those total pool of funds went into cryptocurrency in whatever fashion it would be, and it would probably be Bitcoin, I can tell you right now, because once again, they're very risk adverse people. They operate more out of fear than they do out of greed. So if they're going to get into a cryptocurrency, they're not going to put $1.5 million into Shiba or Dogecoin. They're going to put $1.5 million into Bitcoin or Ethereum. And that's it. Like that's the only, in their world, those are the only 2 cryptos that even exist, is Bitcoin and Ethereum. And most of them don't even think anything other than Bitcoin. So when all of that money, the point I'm trying to get at is when all of these firms that have all of these high wealth private clients and they're managing their money, and then that private client eventually says, hey, why don't I have any cryptocurrencies? What can we get 5% cryptocurrencies in here? We know that 5% of the total pool of money is going to go into the least risk, the most risk adverse cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Ethereum. So when that happens, you'll see 5%, 2.5% of X amount of dollars, probably to the tune of billions, rolling into Bitcoin specifically. So that's just the financial services firm. Now, if I take that one step further, which we've had this conversation before, and I have a little bit more detail on, is nationwide United States pension fund. The total dollar value of the entire pension fund within the United States, the teachers' pension, unions, everything put together, the firefighters, the police, you put it all together, it's about $60 trillion. Wow. $60 trillion. So if you just looked at it from the perspective of 1%, I think I did the math on, if you did 1% of that money flowing into the larger, more risk-adverse cryptos like Bitcoin and Ethereum, you would see $3 to $5 trillion flow into the Bitcoin market that currently has a market cap of $1 trillion. So you would see the price of Bitcoin go up 3, 4, 5x just by the pension funds, the $60 trillion in US pension monies, just by having 1 to 5% of that money trickle in. Never mind 10%, never mind 20%. So just the littlest drip of these big pools of money that are currently not at all being put into this asset class. Once that asset class gets more comfortability and this money starts to flow into that asset class, you'll start to see prices and valuations and market caps go to levels that we didn't even think were capable. And that's where I truly do believe when people say 6-figure Bitcoin, it's extremely possible. Just on that one analysis of US pension funds, 5% going into cryptocurrencies, more likely going into the most risk-adverse cryptocurrencies that there are, which is at this point Bitcoin and Ethereum, because they're the most long-lasting players in the game. They're the most popular players in the game. They're the Coca-Cola and Pepsi, so to speak, of the beverage industry. So once you start to see that money flow it's just going to be like the retail trader, where you start to see the retail trader money flow into Bitcoin. And then look at it now. I remember the first time, and I know I'm speaking to the choir here, where Bitcoin went from 1,000 to 5,000 to 19,000, back down to 5,000. And then, like, I don't think we'll ever see 20,000 again.
I agree. I agree. And that's very interesting. Hearing that perspective, it really makes me think of how big this actual space is and how early we are. Even though we're at a 50K Bitcoin, we're at a 4,500 Ethereum, where prices could really go. Because, a lot of people, professionals, educators in the crypto space have been saying 200 grand, 250 grand for Bitcoin on the end of the bullish cycle. So to hear that, very, very interesting and a really great perspective, from inside the corporate world of finance. Now, what do you really see for the future of blockchain in general? Cryptocurrency, the metaverse. Now we have, Apple was actually partnering up to get into the metaverse. We have Facebook getting into the metaverse, Nike creating, space in the metaverse as well. What do you see for the future of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and just the whole entire space in general?
Yeah, my opinion on that is it's the shift. The way that I look at it, and I've used this analogy before, which I think is appropriate, is right now I look at blockchain and cryptocurrency and this metaverse as like a triangle. They're all very similar, but yet a little bit different. You can even throw NFTs in there. They're all digital assets, and so just you can put them under that umbrella. And the analogy that I would utilize is it's basically like it's 1985 and we're talking about the internet. And people are like, yeah, the internet, and it does this, and you talk to it and it talks to you, and people kind of have an understanding, but we haven't even gotten to 1995 yet. We haven't gotten to 2005 yet, where there's MySpace and there's AOL Instant Messenger, in the things that we grew up on. And then you take that shift over to Facebook, because I was on AIM. I'm assuming that you were MySpace, the young kids were using the young things. But when Facebook came out, all of a sudden you had grandparents that had Facebook profiles that were taking pictures and posting on a social media platform to communicate and converse with their other elderly friends that they can't physically link up with. So what I'm trying to say is you see the adaptation, and if you look at the chart, and I know that IML has this, and I don't know if it's on Google, but if you look at the chart, which is, I believe, titled The Adaptation of Technology, and you go in, but basically I'll give you a summarization. The technologies that came out in the early 1900s took about 50, 75, 100 years to become fully adopted by everyone in society. The technologies that are coming out in 2005, 2010, 2015 are taking 2.5 to 5 years to be fully adopted by everyone in society. So the adaptation time, or the other way of looking at this, the time it takes for individuals to become comfortable with new emerging technologies is decreasing dramatically. And so as we start to see, for an example, microwaves came out and people are like, what is this? Am I going to get sick from having this in my house? A lot of uncertainty, took very long for it to get adopted into all households. And I would say even right now, there's probably not a microwave in every single household, out of that uncertainty and that fear. That same type of concept is what we saw with Bitcoin in 2015, 16. I'm going to get robbed. I'm going to lose this money. How do I store it? What do I do with it? That uncertainty and that fear. Eventually, you'll get to the point similar to that microwave concept where everyone will understand how the microwave functions. They'll understand that it's safe, that it's been vetted, that it has a foundation that it's been built off of, that it's secure, and that comfortability ramps up the adaptation of the technology. You're going to see the same thing in that regards. You're going to see that in crypto. You're going to see that in blockchain. You're going to see that in NFT, which is, to me, it's just a derivative of blockchain technology. And in the metaverse, and all of those three things are going to come together in unison. The metaverse will be an environment where we can utilize cryptocurrency as a payment methodology to converse back and forth, or to trade back and forth with regards to things such as NFTs. So that's just one example where you can see the entire triangle and all three aspects coming together in one environment, just serving one electronic purpose of a payment methodology, an environment, as well as the corresponding electronic payment methodology that works within that metaverse environment. So you're going to start to see this technology get more adopted everywhere. I've talked about it in manufacturing, distribution, and retail with regards to blockchain technology incorporated with RFID devices, incorporated with IoT, Internet of Things. So you have blockchain, you have an RFID device, and you have an Internet of Things. You have a whole bunch of scanners in the roof. You have devices that have RFID chips, which, just to give you a summarization, is a little radio frequency identification device. It basically has a little GPS tracker. It requires no power. And once that GPS tracker goes by one of those scanners, the scanner gives it the energy it needs to report back to the scanner to say, here I am, here's what I am, and here's what's going on with me. All of that is going to be extremely valuable in regards to the manufacturing, distribution, and retail space. You can just look at Amazon. They're the shining example of the incorporation of technology to enhance efficiencies and, as a result, increase profitability. Electronic medical records, government, anything that the government deals with, you are going to be mandated to be on a blockchain. Let me just give you a real life example. Walmart in 2016, I believe, had an E. coli lettuce outbreak. They had various lettuce heads of lettuce that had E. coli and other bacteria incorporated within them, and people were getting sick. And I don't believe that they were dying, but they were getting significantly ill. And this became a logistical nightmare for Walmart. They had teams of people working on figuring out where the bad product came from, how did we transport it, and where did we transport it to. It took them teams of people about 7 days to get all of the data that they needed from their traditional database. Here's the key. After implementing the blockchain technology, Walmart did a similar dry run example to try to figure out how long would it take them to get that necessary information from their traditional database that took 7 days in a blockchain technology environment. They found out that it took them 2.2 seconds to find the information that they needed to resolve the problem. Teams of people taking 7 days, 2.2 seconds. That's the power of the blockchain, and that's why you'll start to see it everywhere. Another example, the Boeing 737 MAX. You have airplanes that are falling out of the sky. Unacceptable to everyone, right? Unacceptable to everyone. What's going to end up happening, like I said before, on the government requirement, is the government's going to say, okay, you want to make airplanes, and that's a government, just like a serialized, weapon or something of similar nature. It's under control of government regulations and requirements. Guess what? Government regulation requirement number one is going to be that you, as a vendor, and all of your sub vendors that give you parts, materials, resources, raw materials to help you build this plane, or they create specific pieces, they do some manufacturing for you. Everyone, you and everyone underneath of you and everyone underneath of them are going to need to be on a blockchain that we are in control of, so that way we have some enhanced confirmation and validity as to the accuracy of the work that's actually being done. That's what I'm saying. You're going to see this become more popular, and just like the internet, the adaptation of the internet, you're going to see this become more popular until the point where it's everywhere, just like the internet. You have Wi-Fi. Every time you go to a hotel, every hotel has Wi-Fi. Your own cell phone, you can turn into a hotspot, and you can let other people have Wi-Fi. In the early 90s, this was unheard of. In the 70s, this wasn't even a thought. When the United States Army was working on the internet for communication purposes, there was never the thought that we're going to utilize the internet for electronic payments between two different parties who are conducting business electronically. It wasn't even a thought process at that time. As the technology got adopted, comfort increased, and then more and more people are utilizing the technology, and it enhances, just like Bitcoin to Ethereum. Same thing, cryptocurrency, but one of them has more capabilities. It has ERC20 token capabilities. It has smart contract capabilities. Same exact thing. You're going to start to see that. And I didn't even speak upon smart contracts, but that's a whole nother emerging technology that's going to just take over the industry, specifically financial services. You're going to get rid of reconciliations. I think I owe you this, you think I owe you that, and we have to come to an agreement as to what's the difference and why. Once we have smart contracts, that's gone. The robot, the coding, the computer coding does the analysis. The two people, the teams of people, the smart contract auditors who incorporated the smart contract into the computer coding language, they just check to make sure that it's functioning properly. They both sign off on it, and then it runs autonomously in the background forever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. I think the adaptation is just so undeniable. And to be where we are today, and to, not even a year from now, but 5, 10, 20 years from now, I truly believe our children will see the mass global adoption to a full effect. in many different ways and different industries all across the globe. And you spoke about, the healthcare industry. You spoke about financial services. Now, I know you're very knowledgeable on real estate as well. And within real estate, real estate is what, $7 trillion industry, somewhere around there. I know it's in the
Yeah.
trillions,
Yeah.
right? So what do you think, how do you think that will also affect, once that comes into play with this global adoption with blockchain technology, cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so I have a few thoughts on that. So if you need to remind me of that question, but the first thing that I thought of was building information systems, a BIS and a GIS. This is for when you're building larger buildings rather than just tokenization of I own a $1.5 billion sports theater, let's say the Staples Center or whatever, and I want to tokenize out the Staples Center or the Hartford XL Center, to use that as a local example. Let's say I own the XL Center and I want to tokenize that and sell like small, Satoshi portions of that building to various people. That's one capability of blockchain technology, tokenization incorporated into real estate. And then the other side is the GIS BIS system incorporated into blockchain technology. And what I'm really talking about here, to be more specific, is you have a paper blueprint of your house, and this is how it's supposed to be built, and this is the walls, this is the dimensions, and this is how everything's supposed to work, but it's on paper. What if we took that paper document and we incorporated layers into the blockchain, and we took that blueprint, as well as all of its adjustments and amendments and updates and change orders, as they call them in the real estate game, we take all of those change orders and we just keep leveling it up and layering it up on the blockchain. So when your house or your building is done, not only do you have the blueprint, you have all of the adjustments, all of the amendments, all of the change orders, every little nuance that has happened in multiple layers, all piled up on your blockchain that you privately own because it's your building. Similar to, like I said before, with Walmart and the lettuce, with the government in the 737 MAX, with the medical field and electronic medical records. Right now, most medical records are paper. Literally, you go into an office and they're like, "Oh, William, how you doing today?" And they'll pull out your file and they'll start looking at papers.
Yeah.
Papers. So when you get a new doctor, your old doctor scans paper documents to your new doctor. And then this brings up the question that I have. If I have an ear, nose, and throat doctor, why does he need to know what's going on with my liver? Unless it has something to do with medication, I understand. But why am I not in control of my medical records? Why am I not the one in control who says, "You're my ear, nose, and throat doctor, and I want you to help me with my nose because I've broken my nose so many times that I can't breathe out of it. So here's the records, the electronic medical records that I'm granting you access to. You don't get access to everything just because you have my paper records like you normally do in today's world. I own my records. They're my electronic medical records. And I'm going to allow you to have access to only those portions that I see fit."
Wow. Yeah.
That's just a whole nother side thing. And I've written articles, so I can give you these articles. I've written articles on the building industry and in the BIS, GIS, and how that's going to be incorporated into blockchain, how that's going to be run up on various layers. Like, for an example, if the foundation of the building must be 8 feet because the building is going to be over 100 feet tall, and that's code and that's other things that I don't know because I'm an accountant, then we can incorporate into the blockchain that needs to be verified by a party, and we can stamp yes in the blockchain as a smart contract. This was indeed done properly, check, certified by the two parties who did that. That gets stored on the blockchain. The smart contract that pertains to that work, that service that was done by that vendor, is incorporated into that checkoff that was done. So now both parties checked off, yes, this was done properly. The smart contract reads that. It says, okay, both parties checked off, we're good here. It then does the autonomous work in the background and issues payment.
Absolutely.
The capabilities are so vast, and there's so many of them, like the internet, that it's hard to describe like, oh, this is what the blockchain is going to be able to do. The blockchain is going to be able to do almost anything like the internet, and it's going to be able to do that in each specific service industry, like government, financial services, medical records, whatever it may be.
Wow. No, it's really great to, hear your opinion, your perspective, and also the knowledge that you have not only about blockchain and blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, but also each one of these industries, because what you're talking about is really revolutionizing the way when it comes to privacy, security, personal finance, corporate finance, global finance, right?
Absolutely.
So really, really interesting. And I know you've actually gone to colleges, spoken to people that are in accounting, that are in finance, that are studying to become an accountant on behalf of your firm. Tell me a little bit about that. What colleges have you gone to, and kind of how has that been going?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've gone to various local colleges. Mainly, I go like UConn. I'll go to Quinnipiac a lot. Those are the two Connecticut colleges that we try to pull from the most because they have the most prestigious financial education platforms in the state for us. So it's UConn and Quinnipiac for our local schools. And then in the Massachusetts, I've gone to Bentley. I've gone to Amherst, I believe. I've gone to a few of them over in that area. I don't remember them too much because they're so close. There's so many different colleges that are in such a small area in the Boston area specifically. But it's mainly the CPA groups, like I said, the MSCPA Society, which is just a certified public accountant. So it's just the young kids that are in college for accounting that want to graduate and then get their extra 20 credit hours and then try to pass the CPA exam. Which is what I am. I'm a certified public accountant. I passed my exam in November of 2019. And so they have a young CPA that is in public accounting that's passionate about emerging technologies and how these are going to be incorporated into the accounting industry going forward. And so they basically say, hey, can you come and speak to us about the blockchain? And so that's why I created my own blockchain. So that way I can literally, rather than just talk about it, which is cool and I love it. I think when you show people the blockchain and you show them how it works and what it's capable of, then it clicks a little more. They start to understand how this is actually going to be impactful compared to just saying words and just, trying to present an image where they can have it click. Well, maybe just actually show them the image, walk through it, and then you can literally tick and tie on how that's going to work in the marketplace. So that's basically what I've done. I've created that blockchain, and then I go to these various groups and I just show them, hey, one thing for an example, one thing that I did is I created a blockchain where there's two different parties. I separate the young group into two different parties, a buyer and a seller, and they're talking about buying and selling a car. And I give them little parameters like the buyers can't spend any more than $100,000 and the sellers don't want to sell this car for anything less than $90,000. So there's a small $10,000 window where they both technically win based upon the rules of the game that I've set up. But I've also set up a little nuance to whoever can buy it for the least and whoever can sell it for the most wins. And so they negotiate back and forth, but they're both set. I've set up the rules to where they can only sell it for $90,000 and they can't buy it for anything more than 100. So there's a very small window of acceptability. And what you see is when you look at when you go into the blockchain and you go into the smart contract that pertains to those two teams in that one specific vehicle in the blockchain. So now we open up that smart contract and we start to see all of the activity between the buyer and the seller. The buyer offered 85 and the seller said, no, 87.5 is what or 97.5 is what I need, to keep that example correct. And the buyer said, no, I want to give you 89. And the seller said, no, I need at least 95. And so they slowly start working their way into the acceptable range. And then once the acceptable range is met, then they actually, they approve the offering. And then they get it, after the approval of the offering, they have it validated. I forgot the exact term that they use, validated and confirmed as accurate by the two parties within the contract itself, and then it's approved. And the whole point here is to see that there's two parties. There's a lot of back and forth activity. There's a lot of details that need to be tracked and little nuances that need to be remembered. And all of that is done within the blockchain, just within that one smart contract. And then if I had another vehicle, I could have another smart contract and another smart contract and another smart contract and another smart contract, all rolled up into one blockchain at the top. And all of these smart contracts are happening and being stored within that one blockchain.
Well, you've actually created your own blockchain transaction.
Yep.
And tell me, how was that process? How long did it take you? Was it difficult? How did you even do that?
Yeah, so I had some free time at work, and so I was like, I want to create this blockchain. What I ended up doing was I found out that Microsoft Azure has a blockchain workbench. So that was my first part, is what environment, kind of like a metaverse, in what metaverse can I build this little blockchain environment that I want to build? So then I looked around, and I know that Oracle had one, and there were some other companies that had free ones out there that you can build from, but they were a little more involved, and they were a little bit more for computer coders compared to accountants. So I found Microsoft Azure. I found out that they had a blockchain workbench that you can build in, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? So I started, this is all Google. The answer is I just Googled everything, I YouTubed everything, and I found it all out via just research. I found the Azure blockchain, I found the blockchain workbench, and then I said, okay, now I'm here, and it's giving me like step-by-step instructions, like a JavaScript object notation. There's a specific type of file, like a PDF or a JPEG or a Word document or an Excel file, a JSON, a JavaScript object notation. That's one of the types of files that I needed, and I needed to have the coding already populated, because I'm not a computer coder, so I'm not going to pretend like I created my own blockchain. That's where I went onto github.com. I just looked up free, what did I look up? I looked up something like free computer coding for Microsoft Azure blockchain. And it took me a few different, like, modifying the search to actually get what I'm looking for. Found the code on github.com, which is just a repository or a hub for various computer coders, where they develop code and then they just store it on there for free for everyone. So it's called open source code. So I found the open source code. So now I have the file. Now I have the computer coding language, and now I have the Microsoft Azure blockchain workbench environment. And so what I ended up doing was just going step by step through the wizard, is what they call it. It's basically a step-by-step guide to help you build the blockchain. And I just copy and pasted what I needed from the file into the wizard to help me get through the step-by-step process. And ironically, that was the hardest part, because the wizard was a little confusing. And at first, I didn't know what a JSON file is. So I kept trying to upload a Word file, and it's like failure, failure, failure. And I'm like, what's going on here? And just through research, just get onto Google and look up what's a JSON file. How do I save a Word file as a JSON file? And then literally, I'm not kidding you, once I figured that out, I saved the Word file as a JSON file. I uploaded it into the wizard, and then bam, I had my blockchain created. And the blockchain that I created was what I was telling you about, which is to have two parties that are conversing back and forth on the buying and selling of a specific item. I used a car because it was young college kids, so they all need a car usually. And then we took that source code, and this was the cool part. We took that free source code that I copy and pasted to create the buying and selling of the car, and then we went into the JavaScript object notation file with that computer coder next to me, and we looked at it and we said, okay, we need to change the car to a drug code, a national drug code, an NDC. And because what we were doing for the client is, there's a drug manufacturer, there's a pharmacy, I almost said drug dealer for lack of a better term. There's a person who makes the drug, there's a company who sells the drug, and then there's a middle person that's trying to say, hey, company, the drug pharmacy, you shouldn't sell Advil, you should sell Aleve, because we get a 5% kickback when we sell Aleve, and we'll give you a 2.5% kickback of that. So if you sell Aleve instead of Advil, we'll give you a $5 million check every week. That's literally how the drug industry works. And so what we built for them was the blockchain for the back and forth of those two parties saying, hey, you should sell Aleve instead of Advil, and then we'll give you 5%. And then the other company says, no, we want 3%. And they say, okay, how about this? We'll give you 2.5%, and we'll give you $6 for every bottle of 150 that you sell. And they have these ridiculous back and forth business agreements between each other. And then eventually they finalize it. And so we customized the code to be a buyer and seller in a car, and we customized that to be a drug manufacturer, a drug pharmacy, and a national drug code. So we had the buyer, seller in the car, and then we just turned that into the manufacturer, the seller, in the drug. And then we walked the client through how this would work. Okay, look at here. This is the buyer and this is the seller. And they're talking about this specific national drug code. And here's the back and forth, and here's how it would work. And at the end of there was two partners and a staff level person on a $500,000 customer contract call. I'm on the computer running through the call with the client saying, this is how it would work, this is how it would function. I'm letting the higher ups speak a little more technically and a little bit more advanced and a little bit more detailed as to the technologies and how we can service the customer and how we can adjust things going forward and give you what you need. And we're here to service you, and that whole manager speech thing. And
Right.
at the end of it, they're like, this is awesome. We would send us the contract. We're going to sign it today.
Wow. And that's sold for how much?
$486,000, one contract.
So the blockchain that you created with everything you spoke about, the process of what it does, sold for a little less than $500,000, $486,000.
Yep. And that client said the reason why we chose you as our vendor was because you were the only client, you were the only vendor, financial services firm. You were the only financial services firm that actually provided us with a blockchain solution. Everyone else, there was two parts, like give us a traditional solution and give us a blockchain solution, and then compare and contrast the two. We did exactly the two. We gave them, it was easy for us. Traditional solutions are already there. It's just unroll, like literally the software's already there, just unroll it. Then we created the customized blockchain solution and walked them through that, and then compared and contrast the two solutions with the client. And then the client said, you're the only firm that even provided us a blockchain solution. Everyone else just completely disregarded it.
Yeah, that's incredible. So that's a great example of adaptation right there. You know, just the fact that you have the knowledge and you figured out how to create a blockchain, you figured out how to solve a problem, which I feel in business, you know, it really comes down to cost, comfort, and convenience for customers and clients, right? So you basically created this entire transaction between, you know, your accounting firm and the client. That's really amazing to hear. And the fact that you literally made the blockchain yourself. And you said, how long from start to finish, how long did it actually take you to do
that? 3 business days.
3 business days, and you generated $480,000 for the company. That's incredible. And that just goes to show the power of, you know, this whole industry, this whole space, blockchain technology, cryptocurrency. And you know, on the topic, while we're talking about this, what is your take on you know, the metaverse, on digital real estate, part of digital assets, you know, buying land in the metaverse, business, they now have jobs in the metaverse. You know, as you can see, the sandbox, which, you know, will be on the screen, there's all these different plots, there's different things that you could purchase in this virtual world. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great thing, and I think it's definitely a step towards the future. I think what confuses a few people, especially when I talk to my friends about like NFTs and the metaverse, I think what confuses them is the utility aspect in terms of how do I use this? What do I use it for? What can I use it for? And to my point, just to keep it very basic, we're going back to that 1975 internet thing where it's like, how do I use this? Do I talk to it? Does it talk to me? What do I use this for? And right now, the metaverse is exactly in that state of its development, of the adaptation of the technology and the utilization of the technology. So once people start to understand what the metaverse is used for and how it can be utilized for virtual concerts, for virtual meetings, you know, let's say I buy a plot of land and instead of me, for an example, let's say I want to be a financial educator and I want to help people with financial education, similar to what we're doing right now. I buy a plot of land in a metaverse and I host my meetings within that metaverse environment. You know, why can't, if Snoop Dogg can have a concert in his virtual land, why can't I open up my own college?
Yeah.
Why can't I teach kids digital entrepreneurship, digital assets, and financial education in an electronic metaverse? Right. Why can't we have a QR classroom where somebody can raise their hand and I can look around and say, hey, you back there? And, you know, and if that person doesn't even speak English, why can't we have a translator that translates his language to my language so that way we can converse? Wow. It's the future, man. People don't even realize the capabilities. They're just looking at like digital land. And it's like, okay, but why? What is that digital land going to provide for? Or what service? Like you said before, cost, comfort, and convenience. What is it that the digital land is going to provide or be capable of providing that currently physical land is enable of doing? Physical land is great for living, and you know, obviously you can't necessarily live in a virtual space, but right. we'll see about that shortly, right? Yeah. But what we can do in a virtual space is very similar things that we've been doing in social media platforms forever.
That's awesome.
but have more of a haptic compared to just like, I'm watching you or whatever, and I just write a comment in the comment chat box, and then I hope that you hit up my chat box, compared to I'm literally in a virtual classroom with you, and you're instructing and you're looking around at other people, and you can see my face. I know you can have a Zoom call and things like that, but once you get like 400 people or 100 people in a Zoom call, it just gets crazy and it's laggy and everything like that.
Yeah.
But once you get to the point where you're in a classroom, now imagine being in a VR classroom, like we're talking about financial education, and I say, okay, we're going to break up into groups of 3 now. And we have little groups of 3, and then I virtually come into each group of 3, and I say, okay, how we doing, everybody? Is just like school. Is everybody getting it? Yeah, I'm getting it, coach, but I'm just missing this one part. Okay, clarify the one part. You're good.
Yeah.
Take off, and then you go to the next group.
Wow.
People don't even realize what's the capabilities of the metaverse, the virtual land, and it goes back to where I started. It's an uncertainty, it's a fear a little bit, and a confusion as to the utility, the resource, the capabilities of what this digital asset can do.
Mm.
And you see that with NFTs. People are like, why would I have an NFT? And then I explained it to some of my friends. It's like, well, some of them have no utility. Some of them have very specific utilities where you can play games against other people and you can earn cryptocurrency in a blockchain environment. And then some of them have a social utility, where kind of what I was saying before about financial education. Let's say you had, like, for a perfect example, Gary Vaynerchuk's Party Degenerates. If you own one of those party degenerates, you're in a very elite special group of individuals, such as CryptoPunks, where every year you get to attend the virtual meeting. So there's certain utilities and functions and capabilities that are incorporated within these metaverses, these virtual lands, these NFTs, and these digital assets that I believe a lot of people don't really understand yet. I'll tell you from my experience, when I was first introduced to Bitcoin, I was like, whoa, this thing is I was more on team gold than I was on team Bitcoin.
Yeah.
5-6 years later, I believe I'm maybe even more on team Bitcoin than I am on team gold now. Yeah. And I know that I've said this before to you. It goes back to, and I'm not saying that I'm against cryptocurrencies at all, because I do believe that they are the future. They are by far the most fungible and diverse asset that we have, in terms of the ability for me to break up $100 into 100 little portions, and then send those 100 little portions to 100 different people in 100 different places, and to do that in an efficient, effective, and timely manner. To do that with gold is complete, get a big bar of gold and then slice it up into 100 pieces and then snail mail it to somebody. But the point that I'm getting at is I'm very excited for when someone incorporates a blockchain technology very similar to the Bitcoin Ethereum network, with some sort of physical, tangible backing, whether it be gold or, like you said before, real estate. Let's say you have a cryptocurrency, and the cryptocurrency is backed by a slice or a percentage or a portion of real estate assets. Like BlackRock. I think BlackRock has $100 billion, maybe even more. It might be in the trillions. It might be like $2 trillion. It's some ridiculous level of assets under management, and they primarily deal with real estate.
Wow.
What if they were to slice that up into?
Yeah. You put even 10% of that would really fluctuate the market heavily. So,
Absolutely.
Man, it's very exciting times, and super grateful to have you on this, have this conversation together, have you on this call today. And the knowledge, that you have on all these subjects, I already know you have a very bright future, man. And let me ask you this one last question. What would you say, what do you recommend for somebody new that doesn't know anything, that's just maybe starting their portfolio or wanting to learn about, what's the first couple of steps you'd recommend for the newest person getting involved within cryptocurrency?
I think the perfect answer to that question is to basically explain to you how I became the blockchain specialist at a 500-person, what was at that time the most prestigious regional accounting firm in New England, YouTube. There was we had our CIO, our chief information officer, so like the head IT guy. We had a firm-wide meeting, and he basically said, if anyone's interested in this thing called blockchain, just feel free to send me an email after the meeting today, and we'll link up. And I literally, with anxiety and a heart beating right after that meeting, said, hey, Michael, I'm interested in blockchain. I don't know anything about this. I'm not an IT person. I don't know computer coding. I'm an accountant. I know finance. And so I'm just disclaimer right up front. And he was like, not a problem. Just keep learning on your own. And that's the point. That's the key here. The way that I would say it, to say it in a nice little witty sentence, I would say pay attention or pay the price. And what I mean very specifically is just look at what's going on, watch the news, watch some YouTube videos before you go to bed. Just, just scroll, or even just Google. You can even Google what's happening with blockchain today, or blockchain adaptation, and you can see what's going on in the marketplace. And that's what I did in all these industries. When you're talking about like electronic medical records, the Boeing 737 Max, serialized weapons, because that was one of my clients with one of my old with our own firm. There was a client that literally made guns for the government. All of these various sectors I've done the research on by myself, and then I wrote a paper, which makes it very easy for me to make sure that I have the right information, because you have all the time that you need, right? And then I just did that again and again and again. So the firm would be like, hey, William, are you willing to write a paper on blockchain and manufacturing, distribution, and retail? Absolutely. What do you want me to write about? We want you to write about how blockchain and other emerging technologies are going to impact and interrupt the current flow of things. And this goes back to what I said before about blockchain, RFID, and Internet of Things. That was my basis. These three technologies incorporating together to create basically a super technology, and the abilities that are going to come out of that super technology. And then you take that information, that data within that very trusted, valid blockchain, and you pump that data into predictive analytics, machine learning, data learning. There's a few different, like deep learning. That was the one I was looking for, deep learning. And it takes, basically what it does, it takes a tremendous amount of data that a human being could never even analyze in a lifetime. And it analyzes all of that data in various aspects from multiple different perspectives. And it gives you various insights to that data. So you're going to start to see what I'm trying to say is the blockchain is going to be the foundational basis of everything going forward, because it's the source of truth. Everyone can come together. Everyone, even if I don't trust you or if I don't like you, I can do business with you because I trust in the blockchain technology so deeply. The cryptocurrency, the cryptography that it's built upon, and all of, because really blockchain technology, like I was saying before about blockchain, RFID, and IoT, the three technologies come together. Blockchain technology is really an incorporation of various high-level, very, very sophisticated emerging technologies that have all been incorporated together to create what is the blockchain. So that the blockchain is like the super technology that's been created almost as a result of various emerging technologies that are currently in place. So I would say just Google things, YouTube things. That's exactly what I did. I literally became the blockchain specialist of a financial services firm in New England by raising my hand and having the courage to say, I'll do this. And then having the discipline to actually do it. Like, after, I'm not doing this during work. I'm working, and then after work, I'm coming home and watching YouTube videos on proof of work compared to proof of stake blockchain foundations, AKA Bitcoin versus Ethereum, proof of work versus proof of stake. And what are the differences there? What are the differences? How do they operate differently? Is one better than the other, and why? What do we think we'll see going forward more in the future, proof of work or proof of stake? Come to find out that there's actually a newer one. I don't remember what it is, but it's not POW or POS. It's something else they came out with. So it goes back to what I'm saying before. The technology keeps getting better. As the technology keeps getting better, the comforts and the adaptation enhance, and then eventually you'll just start to see blockchain technology everywhere. Blockchain will be the basis, because blockchain is the database that houses all of the trusted information. Then the next step is, what do we do with that trusted information? That's where you'll start to see the incorporation of predictive analytics, machine learning, deep learning, and these other various high-level, highly sophisticated technologies that are going to be incorporated and utilized in unison with blockchain. So that's what I'm saying before about blockchain will be everywhere and nowhere at the exact same time, just like the internet. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. It's going to be the basis of everything going forward, just like how the internet is the basis of everything going forward right now. If we can have power, we can have heat, and we can have oil, and we can have water and everything like that. But if you shut off the internet in this country right now, nationwide, for just 24 hours, it would be like a pandemonium. It would make COVID-19 look like nothing, in terms of the disruption to everyday financial markets and just everyday society. The internet is so much more critical than we could even possibly imagine. The blockchain will substitute or will even enhance that further, because now you'll need the internet for the blockchain to function, and then you'll need predictive analytics and machine learning and deep learning to utilize the information within the blockchain, because there will be so much data from so many various sources within the blockchain that if you don't have one of these resources to to pull information and insights out of that data, well, then you just have a whole bunch of pieces of paper and it's like, it's useless. This goes to like, to incorporate what I'm saying here, IBM Watson. You have an IBM Watson, you have a blockchain with a whole bunch of data in it. Now we can start doing some really special things because we have a whole bunch of data that's highly trusted, that's extremely secure in this database. And now we have an artificial intelligent mind that is so capable that it can, I believe that it can analyze 2.5 trillion lines of data in a second.
Wow.
With human intuition, not just like, you know, apples equals apples, but it can actually analyze that data with the same type of intuition that a human being would look at it with.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible, man. So, I mean, it's so much opportunity during this time, and the fact, you know, I like what you said. Just start learning, right? Start researching, start taking action, getting involved, because believe it or not, Gary Vee actually said this too. He said, 15 years from now, all business will be done on the blockchain. Ignoring it is literally like ignoring the internet, just like you said. So it's just incredible, you know, and I just want to thank you for your time today. Amazing information. I learned a lot. You know, every time I've had the chance to talk to you, I've always picked up new information, learned new information. So I'm super grateful to have you on this call, and you know, really excited for everybody to learn more. You know, getting your perspective, getting the, you know, the corporate world, where things are heading. Now, where can everybody find or follow you on Instagram, in case they want to, you know, ask questions, connect with you, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so my Instagram is actually McCarthy Will. So it's McCarthyWill.
Awesome, and
And
I'll drop that in the bio as well. And man, thank you so much again for your time. I appreciate you. Amazing, amazing information. Man, just thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope we get to have another call.
Absolutely. There will be more to come for sure.